Everyone to ModX Scotland. We're excited to have you. It's May 21st. I'm going to be introducing a number of the speakers, but before I do, my partner, Ivan Rupnik. Ivan's on the phone.
Hello, everybody.
And I'm also joined with three speakers that I'll introduce shortly. ModX Scotland is part of a series of virtual exchanges that ModX puts on, which is a consultancy and knowledge management enterprise. Today, we have about 100 plus attendees from US, UK, Canada, Germany, Spain, and Italy. Thank you all for registering and hope you enjoy the discussion. Ivan and I have been hosting ModX exchanges live until COVID-19 hit. So what you see here are a number of the events that we have done or are planning. And we were planning on going to Scotland with these folks that are on the call, but that did not happen. So we're hoping that that will happen in the future, and we'll be talking a little bit about that. Note also, we have taken folks to Japan. We hope to do so later this year or early next year, and also to Sweden and the Bay Area. This is the first of a three-part series. We'll also be reviewing virtually Sweden and Japan in the future, so stay tuned for those events. Now for today, ModX Scotland. I'm going to have four speakers that I'll introduce briefly, and then we'll go through their presentations, and then we will have a Q&A session led by Ivan Rupnik, and then we'll conclude by discussing ModX Scotland Live, the face-to-face that Mila will introduce. First off, Professor Robert Hairstens is head of Center of Offsite Construction and Innovative Structures within Edinburgh Napier University Institute for Sustainable Construction. He leads research, innovation, and knowledge exchange activities designed to deliver construction technologies for tomorrow's communities within a circular economy. I personally had the pleasure of spending an academic sabbatical with Robert's group. He's an incredible leader and convener of the parties in Scotland, and we welcome him. Sam Hart is Business Development Manager for the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre that works to link businesses, university experts, public sector, and the Economic Development Network together to support businesses delivering transformational change in construction. CSIC, or Construction Scotland Innovation Centre itself, is one of 8 industry-led and demand-driven innovation centres supported by the Scottish Government. And CSIC team assists industry and key procurement players in building strong collaborative projects to tackle construction industry challenges, stimulate growth, and create new jobs. Third is Matt Stevenson. Matt Stevenson is founder of Carbon Dynamic with 10 years of impact in social, environmental, industry change and developing offsite manufactured sustainable circular economy-based projects. He's also director of Offsite Solutions Scotland, a unique cooperative of leading Scottish offsite companies. And Matt has more recently co-founded Synergy, or SNRG Synergy, a prop tech startup creating accessible, climate-positive housing communities. He'll talk about that today. Mila Dincheve is an associate lecturer at the Centre for Offsite Construction and Innovative Structures with Robert at Edinburgh Napier University. And she spent 2 years analyzing offsite factory operations in Europe and has 3 years analyzing offsite construction and onsite productivity in Scotland. Mila currently leads the content creation of the Offsite Ready project that will be shared today. With that, we're going to go into the 3 presentations from Robert, Sam, and Matt, and then we'll conclude with some questions and Mila's presentation.
Hi, I'm Robert Hairstens of the Centre for Offsite Construction and Innovative Structures at Edinburgh Napier University, and I'm grateful to be part of this ModX International webinar to discuss Scottish offsite construction. We undertake leading fundamental and applied research for industry, government and public sector bodies in the thematic area of industrialised building systems. We do this by undertaking core and applied research, working in partnership with industry and external stakeholders in order to create impact into the sector with a view to creating the sustainable communities of tomorrow utilising off-site and pre-manufactured approaches. We underpin this with student talent via the Built Environment Exchange, accelerating the career of the students and importantly accelerating cultural change in construction as they move on into this sector. We create a whole load of outputs across the varying forms of off-site construction technologies, working with our external partners, including the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, Scottish Forestry, Architecture and Design Scotland, and we have a close strategic partnership with Trimble and an established Trimble Technology Lab at Edinburgh University, providing access to the latest in softwares and hardwares for the utilisation of digitisation. We publish these outputs also in peer-reviewed journals, but also in book publications such as Mass Timber, An Introduction to Solid Laminate Timber Systems, and recently Off-Site Industrialised Timber Construction via Trada, and that's the second edition. We work across the varying forms of off-site systems, including the panelised and volumetric units, and look at the variations in terms of levels of enhancement from open panel insulated all the way through to fully insulated with integrated services, windows and doors installed, so all the way to full levels of completion up to level 3. We work also on the sub-assemblies, the engineered timber products, the solid laminate timber systems, including the family of mass timber products, which includes both the glued in terms of cross-lam and glue-lam, as well as the non-glued of nail-lam and dowel-lam technologies. And in this respect, we've undertaken both market feasibility of these products and systems, as well as technical viability with a view to integrating resource with an emphasis on homegrown UK resource. But we've also undertaken studies, for example, on the utilisation of tulip wood within the creation of mass timber in partnership with the American Hardwood Export Council. We understand off-site, we understand the drivers behind the utilisation of it, and have undertaken studies in this regard. And in a modern context, the understanding is that there's 6 key drivers, which include sustainability, culture, human capital, productivity, digitisation, and regulatory. And it's the intersection or convergence of these drivers with respect to the given context, both local and international, which resolves to the correct level of off-site and pre-manufacture of the sub-assemblies, volumetric units, panelised or indeed hybrid, bringing a selection of these systems together with a view to levels of mass customisation utilising standard component parts and systems. So, in respect to the research centre itself, this converges to a degree of thematic areas which we focus our energy on, and those thematic areas include off-site productivity and capacity, human capital skills and affecting cultural change, and mass timber construction, looking at the market feasibility and technical viability of these systems and how you can optimise the resource within those applications. And of course, we look to harness our research in the digital environment in order to impart it onto the sector. And of course, that aligns with building information modelling and the move towards digital twins, where we're able to capture and enrich objects with a whole series of digitised information in order that the client or the external stakeholder can understand the value proposition of the off-site technology to be utilised. And the emphasis of what we do is very much geared towards the utilisation of contemporary timber technologies in this respect. The emphasis of this, indeed, I want to look at off-site productivity and capacity. There's a growing urban population and there's a necessity to build more affordable housing and other infrastructure and for this. And in this respect, there's an issue with regards to productivity. Productivity in the sector of construction has stagnated relative to the other areas of manufacturing, services, etc. And this plays out in the UK as well as international. An important point to this, though, is if we want to produce more and do it in a more productive manner, we have to think about the materials that we're utilising in this respect. And around half of all non-renewable resources are used within construction. So if we accelerate the output and don't think about the input, then in fact what we would do is we'd start to use up our carbon credits, and it becomes environmentally unsustainable. So we have to think about the utilisation of resource, hence why we look to use natural capital and renewable resource within the off-site fabrication process. And of course timber lends itself to this, principally because it sequestrates carbon and of course can create a high energy performing envelope on completion. In the Scottish context, this plays out with regards to there's a large degree of timber off-site manufacturers. The vast majority are timber frame manufacturers, and there is some volumetric. There is also a degree of sub-assemblies. Again, the emphasis is on timber, but there's of course concrete and steel sub-assemblies as well. And of course, there's a necessity for these when we start to think about hybrid products and systems. We've undertaken capacity reviews on behalf of the Scottish Government in partnership with the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. And in this regard, we've undertaken these studies both in 2013 and more recently in 2019. What this allows us to do is understand the market context, and there's essentially a £300 million output of off-site construction systems from the Scottish base, which equates to circa $400 to $450 million. And there's a view to expand this or scale this up to 2023 to 322 million. That's the aspiration of the organisations. 75% of this output is, of course, off-site manufactured timber components and systems, employing circa 1,800 people, and of course it has a high utilisation of resource. So we have a minimisation of waste as a correspondence of undertaking these activities in a manufacturing setting. So as I say, a large proportion of this is panelised systems. There's a large degree of open panel systems, but there is a move towards higher levels of enhancement, and volumetric construction is something that is also taking place more in the Scottish context. But the primary emphasis is certainly on panelised systems. And it's primarily also mobilised towards the housing sector. There's an affordable housing shortage in the UK, a housing shortage indeed. 300,000 houses are needed per annum in the UK context, and circa 2/3 of that are currently delivered. So there's a presumption in favour of off-site construction at UK government level, and there's also a drive for off-site construction at localised level, including the Scottish Government. A large proportion of this is currently towards housing, both in the private and public sector markets. However, there is a necessity to deliver more into other market segments, and this has been played out. Offsite Solutions Scotland itself is an organisation that has come together as a cooperative. They're committed to transforming people's lives, homes and communities using proven off-site timber technologies from the Scottish context, engaging with clients to offer a unique blend of collective and individual solutions, and work together to promote off-site manufacturing, transferring the knowledge in terms of best practice with a view to also co-developing skills and undertaking collaborative research and development. How was Offsite Solutions Scotland formed? Offsite Solutions Scotland was originally formed under a project called the Offsite Hub Scotland, funded by the UK Commission for Employment and Skills, now part of the Business Innovation and Skills Department of UK Government. And it was in 2015. There was a recognised effort of needing to improve productivity across all sectors, and a focus on construction given stagnating productivity in that particular sector. There was corresponding an emphasis on off-site construction, and 5 projects were launched. The project led by Edinburgh Napier University was the Offsite Hub Scotland, which included 2 employers of CCG Offsite Manufacturing in Glasgow and Stuart Milne Timber Systems, who have their headquarters in Aberdeen. The university partners with ourselves, leading on off-site and industrialised timber construction in partnership with Heriot-Watt University, who had an emphasis on skills in the construction sector. The first objective of this project was to create industry-specific training material for both the factory floor and the operatives, as well as the on-site installers. So a series of animations, video content as well as written modules were created to provide upskilling content for the operatives with a view to creating more multi-skilled operatives, in fact. It was to allow the upskilling of operatives onto the factory floor as well as for refresher courses, and this content was indeed be able to be played on the factory line. And on site there was a necessity to ensure that the on-site operatives understood the variations that require to be taken into account when installing off-site technologies, including how to ensure airtightness and reductions in thermal bridging, the importance of tolerances and interfaces, as well as the necessity to think of logistics and the alterations in terms of health and safety and risk as a result of such things as the crane erect methodologies. This content was encapsulated and used, and also used to showcase these technologies, including the establishment of a training centre at Stuart Milne Timber Systems Whitney headquarters, which was useful for client and stakeholder engagement. In addition to this, we also wanted to carry out a sort of outreach activity, as well as ensure we were starting to facilitate the improvement of built environment pathways, to provide more flexible approaches to learning and encourage uptake of new professionals into the sector, and provide them with opportunities to think about how they could tailor their career pathway as they progress. We also produced an off-site publication, an introduction, which was ultimately endorsed by the Royal Institute of British Architects, the purpose of which was to explain the key terminologies and remove the pain away from getting involved with delivering off-site. And this was mobilised and geared towards construction practitioners, architects and engineers, and has also been used within the university setting to encourage students to think more about the utilisation of off-site construction and the theory of design for manufacture and assembly. We didn't want the project to end when it was completed. We wanted to ensure that it had legacy, and correspondingly we developed a hypothesis for collaboration in order to create scale, to sense, engage and manage a plan for scale, to research, undertake the basic, applied and ultimately commercialise that research into the sector, and to facilitate knowledge exchange with respect to skills, culture and internationalisation. And this is obviously published in Journal. As part of this exercise, we undertook a lean Hoshin planning exercise where we brought together key stakeholders and members of the off-site community in the Scottish context. We, through that exercise, identified the vital few as part of a strategic exercise for scale, and then we correlated that with individual interviews with the off-site organisations, the key off-site organisations, in order to rank the emphasis of a strategic plan of skills and culture, branding and marketing, business models and strategies, technical research and internationalisation. And we correlated that with the international framework at the time, the 2013 Research Roadmap, to ensure that there was a corollary with that, given the necessity to move towards that internationalisation. So Off-Site Solutions Scotland was formed. It consists of the companies with a good geographical spread and of varying sizes, and they have stakeholder engagement through Edinburgh Napier University, Scottish Enterprise and ourselves as lead academic partner. It also interfaces with the wider Scottish timber forestry context, indeed has support from Scottish Forestry and that supply chain. So where are we now? Well, 5 years on, we're still mobilising in these key thematic areas. We have undertaken work in skills and culture, and the recent launch of Offsite Ready as a platform codifies much of this information from the original research and with input from Offsite Solutions Scotland and the wider UK market to encourage the off-site construction utilisation across the UK, and correspondingly that was funded by the Construction Industry Training Board with a series of other UK-wide partners. Branding and marketing, Off-Site Solutions Scotland has formed. It has a website, it has a brand identity, and it has endorsement at Scottish Government level through the Housing Minister. Technically, we've undertaken research work on behalf of the membership, both on an individual tailor basis, but also across the membership base, looking at the technical attributes of off-site with a view towards how you standardise details and create mass customised approaches with a view to future regulatory drivers, both from a structural, thermal and an acoustic perspective. The business models, well, they are a business. They've set up a cooperative company. They have their own account, registered for trading. And importantly, we're working closely with external stakeholders such as Edinburgh City Council, Scottish Futures Trust, to try and look towards improved procurement models to facilitate a pipeline of activity. And of course, through this exercise with MODEX, we're looking to internationalise that and share these findings towards a learning journey later in the year. And we want to continue this scaling and to look at the strategic convergence of the stakeholders, the forest products in Scotland, the off-site sector itself through Off-Site Solutions Scotland, and the value-added pre-manufactured components and parts which are manufactured in the Scottish context. So thank you for listening, and whatever happens out the back of COVID-19 and the sort of shutdown, let's make whatever that new normal is a sustainable future. Thank you very much, and I look forward to picking up with you on how we can scale off-site construction.
Thank you, Robert. It was great. We're going to go to our second presentation, which is Sam Hart. And Sam, of course, with Construction Scotland Innovation Centre.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to MODEX Scotland 2020. My name is Sam Hart. I'm an Innovation Manager here at the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. So the Innovation Centre's focus is on unlocking value through change, but that change doesn't necessarily need to be financial. Drive culture change, for example, through procurement reform, a more collaborative approach with earlier contractor involvement, and better training, a highly accurate description of today's fragmented construction industry. Although, as you can see there, this was written 75 years ago and towards the end of the Second World War. So I guess that demonstrates the scale of the challenge ahead. But it's not all bad. Change is happening all around us all the time. And I think it's important that we are the disruptors rather than the disrupted, because disruption isn't just coming from across the street. Some of the biggest international names during 2019 invested in the UK off-site construction industry. And you can see the likes of the names on the screen there. So a bit of background on CSIC itself. The Innovation Centre is essentially funded through the Scottish Government via the Scottish Funding Council, Scottish Enterprise and Highland and Island Enterprise. We're a member of one of 8 innovation centres, all essentially with the same key objective, and that's to connect the respective industries to, close your ears, Robert, the brightest minds and the biggest projects to bring transformational change across the construction sector. For net zero carbon focused actions, connected ecosystems, collaborative projects, the innovation factory, and future skills. Connected ecosystems is essentially exactly what today is all about, ensuring everyone is communicating and working together to ensure that the sum is greater than the parts, and that we are all working towards the same common goal. We do that through the seminars and workshops held at the centre, product launches. We've generally got live builds going on in the Innovation Factory, and work with the universities to hold hackathons there as well. With a network of individuals who come together to both discuss potential collaborative opportunities and also assess CSIC's projects to ensure that they remain in line with our core objectives. The Innovation Factory is a 35,000 square foot facility for the construction industry, described as the UK construction industry's first dedicated digital manufacturing, prototyping and future skills centre of excellence. The next slide here is a very quick video of the off-site equipment available at the factory for those who were unfortunately supposed to be actually over here today. So probably the most important work that we do are the collaborative projects. Some of them are up on the screen there. K-Brick is probably the biggest one that we've had to date. It's the UK's first recycled brick. I think it incorporates over 90% recycled construction material. And that's actually being commercialised as we speak and is currently doing the rounds across the various TV channels here in the UK. Robert mentioned the establishment of Offsite Solutions Scotland earlier. And also with Napier there, you can see we contribute towards Scotland's largest cross-laminated timber building across in Glasgow. Robert also mentioned Multiply project for the American Hardwood Export Council. The following slide is just a super quick video, but it does showcase the work on the vacuum press, the UK's only vacuum press at the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and also describes the project in a bit more detail.
It's a cross-laminated timber. What that means is that you've got planks, and it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and you build those layers up. So it increases the strength.
So we worked with Napier there to produce, I think, 120 of those panels. The idea behind them is that they could be constructed and deconstructed to be repurposed. So originally for London Design Week, it then went to Milan Design Week, and I think is currently sitting in Spain, waiting to be moved to the next country once the regulations, etc., are lifted. Future skills, a key part of our work is trying to upscale the industry. The industry, and the Offsite Ready project is based around trying to train the trainer. If we've got all of these new processes and procedures and manufacturing capabilities coming forward, how do we ensure that those that are teaching the young people coming through, how do we ensure that they are fully up to date with what the latest state of the art is? So there's a program of work undergoing currently through webinars, given the crisis, but hope to roll those out across Scotland in the near future. 4 industry priorities aligned to zero carbon outcomes: digital transformation, accelerating industrialization, culture change, and building sustainably. Digital transformation, for those of you who haven't seen this, it's McKinsey Global Institute's Industry Digitization Index. Construction languishing there, or rather flying high above growing things and killing things. So the scale of the issue there is fairly obvious from a digital perspective. However, change is coming. Industry 4.0 and even 5.0 are now beginning to show the capabilities of automation, machine learning, data analytics, and computer power within off-site manufacturing. Accelerating industrialization. We were stakeholders in the UK's largest funding grant from government around a project with some of the UK's biggest house builders. Essentially, better, faster, cheaper. How can we improve quality, increase productivity, and reduce costs across the house building sector? Culture change. Obviously, construction is not exactly famed for the diversity of its workforce. So CSIC, an example project, is working with a number of stakeholders to try and increase the number of women in the sector, create a more flexible environment, and therefore in turn improve the attractiveness of a career in the industry. And building sustainably. Pre-COVID-19, by far the most important and fundamental issue affecting all of us. The construction industry here in the UK accounts for approximately 60% of all UK material use. I think it's 30% of water use as well. 40% of UK carbon emissions come from the construction industry, with 80% of those from buildings already in use. So thankfully, Scotland was the first country in the world to declare a climate emergency. And as an industry, we have to ensure that this absolutely remains our number one priority. We were due to hold the United Nations Climate Change Conference in November 2020 in Glasgow. That's been deferred, I understand, to around about springtime next year. And we have plans to exhibit project work there to try and showcase Offsite's contribution towards reducing the carbon output. And perhaps I should have asked Greta for a more appropriate quote when looking to discuss the merits of offsite timber construction. But essentially the message is still valid. The world of offsite has the potential to create a sea change in respect of the negative impact the construction industry has
on the environment. So certainly at CSIC and in conjunction with Napier and industry, we're here to ensure transformational change happens starting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And our final presentation is by Matt Stevenson at Synergy.
Good afternoon. I'm Matt Stevenson, and I'm very pleased to be able to provide a bit of industry context following on from Robert and Sam's presentations. I've been fortunate enough to collaborate with Napier and with Construction Scotland Innovation Centre as a Director of Offsite Solutions Scotland, previously with Carbon Dynamic, one of its establishing member organisations, and today I'm here representing Synergy, a new PropTech startup established to deliver the future of living to the market. I founded Carbon Dynamic in 2009 with a desire to deliver social, environmental and industry impact through an uncompromising approach to off-site manufacture using all sustainable and natural materials. Naturally, our bio-based material of choice is timber, and as such, collaborating with Robert and his team at Napier was an obvious route for us to take. I'm passionate about developing timber engineering solutions, and through these, a regenerative antidote for an industry which is currently addicted to carbon-intensive solutions. Within my time at Carbon Dynamic, we delivered a series of innovative projects, including the Fit Home, technology-enabled assisted living homes, which were designed to respond to the changing needs of their occupants over time. Through the development of artificial intelligence and predictive analytics by Robert Gordon University, the house learns over time to anticipate, for example, if somebody is likely to have a fall, which enables an early intervention and improved health outcomes. We delivered the Social Bite Homeless Village in Granton, where up to 20 people can benefit from a home and the support required to transition into long-term housing solutions. And we engineered, manufactured and delivered the modular Dyson Student Village, comprising of 62 pods in various cantilevering configurations. With the delivery of each of these projects, we collaborated with Napier and their Built Environment Exchange programme, providing master students with industry experience and gaining access to a succession of dynamic and engaged individuals who would work in harmony between Carbon Dynamic and Robert's team at Napier to deliver significant applied innovation. Taking the Dyson project as an example, we were able to design an all-CLT system to achieve a series of 3 and 4 metre cantilevers across 3 stories. The BEX alumni who drove that project were Max Garcia and Rory Doak, who 18 months later are both in key industry roles at Element 5 in Canada and Stora Enso, respectively. Interestingly, when I started Carbon Dynamic, the market appetite for modular was extremely limited, and the interest in a timber-based solution even more so. Yet it was clear that we would need to move inexorably towards that more sustainable and efficient solution. During the last few years, we have seen a significant shift in the market demand for a modular approach, and as Sam noted, there's been significant investment into this industry. In tandem with that, we are seeing a convergence in awareness of the climate emergency, a recognition of the limited carbon budget that we have available to work with if we are to avoid reaching a catastrophic tipping point, and there's an appreciation of just how unsustainable business as usual is. Add to this how interconnected and vulnerable the COVID-19 pandemic and its devastating effects has made us all feel, And we can only hope that there is a positive result of these tragic circumstances, in that we have a set of conditions that forces us to properly address the need to work together to flatten the climate curve. So there's a significant responsibility on us as an industry to respond to these conditions in the most constructive way possible. And the formation of Offsite Solutions Scotland is a great example of how industry can choose to see the opportunity that exists in collaboration. Within the membership of OSS, we have businesses with a broad range of skills and capabilities. There are large and small organisations, and we have a geographical reach that covers the whole of the UK. But in tandem with that, we have a sizable innovation footprint too. And between our membership, we are majoring on developing the key capabilities required if we are to address the opportunities of Industry 4.0 and beyond. Whilst no one organisation has all the ingredients, if we come together as a whole, then we can deliver a far more meaningful and accelerated impact than if we were to operate in isolation. As Robert and Sam mentioned, we have some exciting collaborations in progress, working with progressive partners like City of Edinburgh Council, Scottish Futures Trust, as well as Highlands and Islands Enterprise, Scottish Enterprise, and the Scottish Government. These relationships will assist us in taking the next steps in this formative and collaborative journey. Robert made reference to the strategic convergence of forest products, Offsite Solutions Scotland, and the key value add partners within the market. The expansion into a wider integrated and collaborative network presents a significant opportunity to evolve our shared industry within Scotland. A great example of the expansion of this collaborative engagement is the formation of the Mass Timber Alliance, which brings together stakeholders from each of these sectors within a cooperative environment, within which we're going to advance the viability of a homegrown mass timber industry beyond the constraints of commercial competition. And that's a good point for me to introduce Synergy and the work that we are doing and the partnering that we're undertaking with CSIC and Napier to deliver our project. Synergy is a human-centred, design-led prop tech company. We integrate innovations across housing, energy, mobility, technology and finance to create accessible, climate-positive housing communities. We're aligned to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we believe that we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build a future that is environmentally, socially and financially sustainable. Our approach to development focuses on environmental sustainability, on human health and well-being, and on equitable economic benefits. We see the key problems we wish to address with our solution as social isolation. An estimated 9 million people in the UK suffer from loneliness. Climate emergency, where 50% of the UK's carbon emissions come from construction. And a housing crisis where we have generation rent. 90% of 18 to 34-year-olds are predicted to be unable to get on the housing ladder by 2025. To address these challenges, we are creating Synergy communities. A Synergy community is an interlacing of shared spaces and private places. It will be home to a maximum of 150 people, and this is in line with Dunbar's principles. These people will live in about 100 private dwellings. Each home is designed and manufactured off-site as volumetric CLT modules built to Passive House standards. Our homes are fully electric and fossil fuel free, and they're arranged as a community around a central communal garden. Every home enjoys views and access to this wonderful shared green space. Our communities benefit from shared amenities, including a cafe and a community kitchen. Co-working and maker spaces will have shared mobility with electric vehicles. There'll be solar photovoltaics feeding a communal battery storage solution. The technological innovations needed to address our climate and loneliness crises already exist. What is lacking is their integration into a single human-centered software platform and hardware stack. We are fortunate to be a Centrica invested business, and we benefit from access to a suite of technology assets, to services, capabilities and partners that will allow us to provide a turnkey solution to our Synergy communities and also to other developers. We're very excited to be developing a demonstrator of our 2-bed duplex unit, which will be exhibited at COP26 in Glasgow. This unit will comprise of 2 stacked modules, and the shell of these units will be formed from homegrown cross-laminated timber and nail-laminated timber panels. The structure is currently being designed by Napier and will be manufactured by CSIC at the Innovation Factory. Our timber will be homegrown Sitka spruce, produced by our partner BSW, the UK's largest sawmiller, and the resulting build will be the first commercial project delivered in the UK to use homegrown mass timber products. This project will also be an opportunity for us to develop our digital twin approach. Work is in progress as we speak. Napier are developing this digital twin, and we are looking to create a building information model with a significant amount of metadata that will provide us with the intelligence to inform and optimize every part of our process, from the design through the manufacture and assembly to the install and thereafter into the use phase, and eventually to inform the disassembly and reuse or repurposing of the components at end of life. Our Synergy demonstrator will be occupied for a number of months before it's exhibited at COP26. During this time, we'll be able to obtain valuable in-use data, providing us insight into the performance of the building and also how it is used. When we roll out our product at community scale, we will use our technology platform integrated with our digital twin of the project in order to optimize the efficiency of the development, while minimizing the amount of interface required for our tenants. Based on the data within the model and captured within the design and manufacturing process, we will be able to inform our design and manufacturing processes going forwards to ensure that we are in the best possible position to produce our quality product, which uses premium materials, whilst still delivering optimum value. We want this to be a catalyst for the development of a mass timber manufacturing industry in the UK, and the conditions for this feel like they've never been better than they are today. Once again, this prospect is best served by having a collaboration of stakeholders who recognise the greater opportunity that can be achieved if we align behind a shared vision. We don't know for sure when COP26 will happen, but hopefully it will be early on in 2021, nor can we be quite sure when the ModX tour to Scotland will be. But when it does happen, hopefully our Synergy demonstrator will still be set up as a technical test bed at CSIC, and you'll be able to see it. No matter what, though, you can be assured of a very warm welcome from me and from my colleagues at Offsite Solutions Scotland, from Napier, CSIC, and from the wider industry. Whether you visit us in person or join virtually, we'll be very pleased to share our knowledge and to introduce you to all the exciting work that has been pushed forwards in Scotland. And hopefully we can further develop the connections between our collaborative networks. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Matt, for your presentation. And we have the panel in front of us. I'm going to turn the time to Ivan to pose some questions for the panel in the discussion live. Ivan Rupnik, please go ahead.
Thanks, Ryan. I hope everybody can see me. Before I start with the questions, I'm going to pose a question to myself and Ryan and answer it, which is, why the heck are we in Scotland virtually? Is it because we like haggis? Is it because we like Scotch whiskey? Is it because we like golf? Well, maybe, and it might be all three of those. But honestly, we travel around the world. It's something we get to do, and we look for places that where something really unique is going on in offsite, but also where there's lessons to be learned for everyone. And we go to places like Scotland, we go to places like Sweden and Japan, in Poland, and really just to make it 100% clear, really what we're seeing here today and what we're hopefully going to be unpacking over the next few weeks and months and in person in Scotland is really the gold standard in the kind of collaboration that we need to grow the offsite industry. Really, we have not seen what you've just gotten a little bit of a glimpse of, and it's important to understand what you've seen if you're not familiar with it, or even if you are and you take it for granted, is really a very unique ecosystem of public and private players. They're really doing amazing things to move offsite, but also housing and urbanization at large. And I just wanted to make sure we understand that what we're looking at. There's a lot of in particular things to discuss, and we're going to. But again, as a model of collaboration, Ryan and I we've looked hard and we've looked long, and really this is really amazing stuff. So I'm happy to be here today. And again, we're hoping to keep the discussion going. But again, we've gone through some of the audience questions from previous few days, and we're going to go through some of the ones that we felt were the most provocative, starting with a question for Robert and Matt. So in offsite construction, and particularly in wood-based offsite construction, what are some of the key links between land management, forestry, and offsite construction? And then just as a sub-question to that, will stricter environmental regulations, particularly European Union regulations, benefit the offsite industry? So Robert and Matt, whoever wants to take that on.
You go first if you like, Robert.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I could speak to. I mean, I think from Scotland obviously has a kind of unique position with respect to the interfacing of those sectors. For example, we work closely with Scottish Forestry, and at Edmund Napier we have another sister centre rather called the Centre for Wood Science and Technology, and they similar to the research centre I work with, engage primarily with the sawmillers and those that are doing forest management work, and that's through another cooperative as such called Strategic Integrated Research into Timber. So that's kind of like evolved in a similar manner to Offsite Solutions Scotland. So the interesting thing is that there's an inherent relationship between the academic university base and the forest sector, and that's triangulated again with government as such, and government department through Scottish Forestry, as well as the wider trade organisations as well. So there's a real inherent understanding of the resource, the capability of the resource, and also the silvicultural practices which influence the growing culture and ultimately the performance attributes of that resource, and indeed how it can be managed in terms of its quality assurance, its grading, etc., and the work that's undertaken informs the European grading rules, etc. So there's a real inherent understanding of that and the management of it, and of course all of that forest resources is sustainably managed, in line with the Forestry Stewardship Commission (FSC) standards, etc. So that interfaces, and then a lot of the work that we look to do is then add value to that resource into the supply chain, and fundamentally it tends to be a blended approach when it comes to off-site manufacture, and indeed a lot of the material used is indeed imported, but obviously Scottish resources used within that, and what we're looking to do is actually influence that more and have more of it utilised within the domain of course off-site construction. So that hopefully
can you just briefly expand on, is there, I mean, so right now it's about working well with the resource, but the resource is being imported. Is there a chance to improve land management and improve forestry practice through offsite construction? It's a new value-added process. Is that something that's as a form of collaboration between the offsite sector and the forestry sector in Scotland?
Yeah, actually that's a really, really good point, because I fundamentally believe in that. So that is something that is taking place indeed, and we're trying to create that sort of strategic convergence, as I say. But yeah, absolutely, to get almost like that vertical supply chain integration and have it so that you're using sustainably managed resource and adding further value to it, in line with the sort of theory of the circular economy. So you're maximising its value in terms of its utilisation before going to landfill or being burnt. So absolutely, and I think one of the things that can look to absolutely facilitate that is the digital thread that can go from forest floor to built asset, and understanding the carbon credentials of that built system, both in terms of its carbon sequestration all the way through to how it's performing in situ from a building performance evaluation perspective. and indeed how that can ultimately impact upon the procurement models. So absolutely, I think all those things can be completely lined up.
Yeah.
Matt, anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, just to reinforce that, obviously I nicked one of Robert's slides to further reinforce it about that strategic convergence. It's, you know, it's a great sort of opportunity that we have. I think just to also note, you know, I commented on our carbon budget. I think that it's great that, you know, we're starting to use this sort of language and to recognise the importance of embodied energy and embodied carbon. And, you know, I think that as that's not been such a feature until, you know, the last year, 18 months, and it's so crucial to things going forwards. So I think that recognition and seeing that somehow translating into policy would be what we'd all aspire to see happen. You know, it's great that that Scotland, you know, was the first to announce the climate emergency. We can look to stuff that's happening in France with, you know, 50% of public projects need to have need to be timber based response. So, you know, great if we can aspire to see those sort of bold policies coming into place in the coming years. So I hope coming months would be really nice. But yeah.
It looks like it's happening in Scotland, so that's great. Yeah, we also another big issue that keeps coming up, but I don't think gets enough attention. You know, in the McKinsey report from 2017, a lot of the productivity discussions were focused on the factory space and manufacturing, but we also know that a lot of the lack of productivity and efficiency in construction comes from the procurement process and the contracting process. And so I guess I would ask, you know, actually everyone on the call, Robert, Sam, Matt, what are some of the, you know, significant changes that have happened through your collaborations, and what are others that need to happen to really get the procurement model in line and to really bring some of that productivity not just into the physical part, but into the actual project management side as well, where really we're losing a lot of value in construction.
Yeah, I guess just go on, Robert. You first.
Well, sure. I didn't want to hog it, to be honest, but I think, yeah, we know that for offsite to scale, ultimately there's the capex often up front has to be higher, and then obviously once you've done that, to get your return on investment, you need to keep, you know, a manufacturing process flowing, right? And in line with that, there has been difficulties with that in terms of the traditional procurement models and procurement process, which, being honest about it, you know, often if you look at the more traditional models, it is lowest cost, lowest quality in terms of delivery, as opposed to the higher value proposition of offsite construction, thinking about whole life value proposition, so thinking of it holistically. So fundamentally the procurement models need to change to reflect that. From a UK perspective, particularly when thinking of housing, we obviously have private and public sectors. The private sector tends to be on the speculative private house building model, but a lot of those organisations do have strategic partnerships with off-site manufacturers. And then obviously we have affordable public sector procured housing, and there's certainly a drive towards net zero carbon, if not sort of zero carbon, and of course that starts to lend itself to off-site approaches because you can evidence it better through the digital integration and reduction in waste, but also the overall quality of what you produce, ensuring that what is built matches with the required specifications, so there's not a gap in performance. So the procurement models for me are certainly moving more in that direction, and indeed some of the work that we have coming up is to help to shape that more, and of course with a view to the more sort of digital platform approaches.
Yeah, Sam, do you have anything to add
I guess
to
just
that discussion? Or it's Matt, yeah.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say there that you know, that digital thread that Robert mentioned from the forest floor. What's exciting is when that goes forwards into the in-use phase. You know, so it's part of what I think cut out in my presentation there was just talking about actually the post-occupancy evaluation. And you know, if we've got a model as Synergy where we go through into the operational phase, then that's where there's a real opportunity to deliver a better quality product, because actually the reward is further enhanced through that in-use phase. And if we've got that digital thread, then we can ensure that we're starting to get that feedback loop, you know, the digital twin piece in the midst of that, you know, absolutely informing that greater value proposition. But at the moment, we're trying to deliver within the constraints of procurement and contractual arrangements that were set up around conventional, traditional construction, and it needs to be a very different lens that we use for it.
Sam, anything you want to add to this conversation before we go on to the next question?
It's slightly more difficult for me to comment on things, well, I suppose from a confidentiality aspect, but there is significant work being undertaken at the moment through CSIC, Scottish Government, and stakeholders on trying to produce new procurement models, whether or not that's using DLT or blockchain or other systems. Obviously, certainly from a public sector, we're obliged and regulated through certain procurement rules and regulations. So it's how we can take those and adapt them and utilize them to work better for offsite. But there are I can think of at least 2 or 3 projects being undertaken by colleagues and the public sector and industry working together to try to create those digital platforms that will help enhance and make the process smoother.
Yeah, because it does seem that it's not just that offsite needs a different procurement model, but that the procurement model itself, despite of its promise of delivery, well, maybe, you know, we accept lower quality, but supposedly we're going to get a product. Well, it turns out that hasn't been the case either. So I actually think understanding the true cost of the current procurement model, and not just as a way to talk about something that offsite needs, but it's something that all construction needs to really think, seems like an important step. And it sounds like you guys are in a really good position to tackle that. So maybe shifting into a very much related topic, and Robert alluded to a bit, is the financing. Oh, sorry, Robert. Is that Ryan?
I just wanted to see if Mila wanted to add to that. I think she had something to say. Go ahead, Mila.
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah, sorry, thanks so much, Ryan. Yeah, well, I just want to say everything that people said is super important, but there's also one more element to it, which is a little bit challenging in the moment, and that's the timing in procurement. And of course, we've got the RIBA plan of works, etc. And I have been speaking to people in industry about this, and you'd think we know better by now. But what happens very often, projects progress from concept up to developed design, and then only afterwards do they start thinking about, oh wait, we may want to add some offsite construction into that. And then what you end up doing is trying to, almost, fit the circle into the square, or fit this, it doesn't quite work, and you have to do a lot of redesign work. But with some of these more performance-based procurement collaborative approaches, we do hope to see more thinking about offsite construction right at the start of that procurement process. And I think that would be an important part for the innovation aspect.
Yeah, and again, I think that even that thinking would assist all construction, because shifting from steel to concrete also doesn't seem to save us a lot of money. It also just costs more money. Yeah, so that's a really good point. Yeah, another question that came up a lot was the issue of financing itself as an obstacle. We see that in the U.S. and in North America in general, and British throughout Europe. So what has Scotland done, or what has done for Offsite Solutions Scotland done to, again, and we've sort of touched on it a little bit, but what has it done to explain the different needs of financing, the different approaches to financing, the different weighting of financing that happens in offsite projects?
Yeah, I suspect we haven't nailed it, because it is a challenge. You're trying to respond to a market that's set up for something very different. I would, the same point I made before about that whole life asset value, certainly starts to help with that, but you're still trying to respond to financing and market conditions that are set up for something very different. I think it's where, as Offsite Solutions Scotland, we've got that opportunity with a consortium of partners to put together, and articulate well to the market value proposition, but some really effective case studies together to present. You know, that's work which really we're focused on and undertaking as we go forwards now. So such that, you know, the way in which that's viewed and understood is relevant to what the product is, and the opportunity and the great investability of it. But you know, it's still seen as a less mature offering into the market, but maturity to demonstrate.
Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on some of those things, I guess what's kind of interesting in the Scottish context is this sort of, especially in the housing market, 85% of our housing is timber frame, which is, in the Scottish context, timber platform frame construction, primarily open panel. So, you know, enhancement level 1, going back to that slide. You know, but there's a call towards more levels of enhancement, and indeed fully closed systems, which result in about, you know, 15% of that market base. And obviously there's some volumetric systems. But the point being really that timber platform frame construction in Scotland is standard, so it's kind of like almost like a traditional build method now, and correspondingly, you know, it's normally got an external facade of brick or block and render finish, etc. But correspondingly, the market is used to it from a sort of lending and insurance perspective, both in the private and public sector areas. But as you move towards the higher levels of enhancement, look towards more novel and technical solutions, and from a mass timber perspective, or to a sort of medium high-rise perspective, it can become more difficult because of certain regulatory blockers that are within the market context at the moment, not as a result of problems with timber often, but with other materials, which then has an impact due to combustibility requirements. But regardless, from a sort of lending mortgage standpoint, there is a track record there, a tradition as such, which demonstrates that it's obviously a viable solution. The trick is going to become more to the fore as we move into that much higher levels of enhancement and look to do much more in a factory-based environment, and to get the lenders and insurers to accept that. But there are schemes out there, such as the Build Offsite Performance Assessment Scheme, which is around ensuring off-site construction and providing support to it. So there's things that exist within the market which can facilitate from a mortgage and lending, but of course there's always the barriers to uptake as well.
Maybe one more question from what we collected before, and I'm sure there's some new questions as well. Which is probably the most topical question: is do you see what do you see will be the impact of COVID-19 on offsite construction? Is it an opportunity in the sense that there's more requirements? You know, obviously there's going to be economic challenges, but are there also will it impact conventional construction in ways that offsite might have other opportunities?
I think that it should, you know, it's got the potential to see an increase in the uptake of off-site manufacturing. Certainly, when we look and we talk to colleagues who are working down in England as the construction sites have opened up again, and the amount of technology that they're needing to try and deploy to try to maintain the regulations that are in place there is proving increasingly difficult. So obviously with the likes of off-site manufacturing, whether or not it's the kind of greater digital enhancement at the start that can be carried out in isolation in an office, in a kitchen table, if you want. The manufacturing environment themselves, obviously it's much easier to maintain social distancing. There's potentially a greater amount of automation, even robotics across the scale. So it's far easier to maintain those social distancing standards. Working on your own is obviously easier. There's likely to be a full suite of lifting equipment, enhanced PPE, generally within a factory as compared to being on site. And in turn, that obviously means
essentially less people will be on site, which brings all of the other benefits of, you know, reduction in public transport movements, which is proven to be a real key issue with opening the construction sites, is simply getting people to the site. So for me, I think, yeah, I think it should involve an increased uptake of off-site manufacturing across the sector, I think.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm going to pass it over to you. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Robert. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree largely with Sam. I think the interesting thing is you see with the manufacturing environment is able to control workflows and things like shift patterns, etc., and obviously reducing levels of manual handling, especially as you move into Industry 5.0, etc. So I think there's a real opportunity there with respect to it. So I think the new normal should definitely be off-site delivery mode.
Ryan, if you we're going to pass the baton to you in terms of other questions that have been coming up from the audience.
Yeah, we've had a few questions come up from the audience. I have 3 questions here that have been articulated. One is more general and something I'm interested in as well. Maybe I'll just give a summary and also let people know on the call that we will be posting some links on the YouTube video underneath that include offsite solutions. All the organizations that are on this call, Offsite Ready and the BEX project. And so just as an overview, because we heard that during the presentations, that I think relate to Ivan's note that this is a very innovative ecosystem, Scotland and Offsite. Number one, Offsite Solutions, where offsite companies come together to partner. That's pretty unique globally. And Matt, as one of those companies coming to the table to partner and innovate and share in bids for projects. Pretty unique in that kind of partnership in order to increase the capacity, frankly, because that's a problem across the globe is capacity, limitations on capacity for offsite. You can get a project that asks for 1,500 units, but if you don't have the capacity to deliver on that as a company, it's game over. So that's really powerful. The other is Offsite Ready. Offsite Ready project, which is training and education for the industry, but also for education. And then last, BEX, Built Environment Exchange, which Edinburgh Napier has been a leader in mapping student internships, student employability, and research onto companies' interests and needs. That's very unique, and it prepares those students for that industry and also gives them jobs at the end of the day. It's a really great program. So those 3 things I think are pretty unique. First question to Mila about Offsite Ready. Could you give a little bit more information about it and what it's intended to do and what your role is in it?
Yeah, of course, very happy to. Thank you very much for the question, Ryan. So Offsite Ready is all about creating very flexible, freely available online learning materials. And this divided into 8 modules, one of which is called a teaching support system that just talks people through how to use the materials. And the other 7 modules are offsite fundamentals, then digital design, then estimating commercial, followed by logistics, followed by offsite manufacturing. Then you go and you place the components on site, so that's on-site placement assembly, and finally that whole life cycle approach or management and integration of the built assets. So what the project really does is try to provide really easy to understand learning materials or just knowledge exchange materials across the building life cycle following those 7 modules, and within each of those, to have that flexibility, we've got some infographics, we've got some videos, talking head videos of myself and Katrina Jordan from City of Glasgow College, summarizing the key points, as well as technical booklets, PowerPoint slides, workshop videos, and actually as part of that, very soon we're going to upload a pack that introduces the Built Environment Exchange and how anyone can implement the Built Environment Exchange at their organization. So people who can benefit from this are people from education, whether it's school level. We've also got some modules developed for school level to get people interested into construction, and that's delivered by Class of Your Own. whether that's college or universities. Anybody can just pick something off the shelf, add a few slides, add a booklet, show a video, and just start to introduce offsite construction into the curriculum, because currently there's a big gap. And if you want change towards offsite construction in industry, really need to upskill people. But likewise, people from industry, lots of people go to conferences because they've heard about offsite as a buzzword. They're not too sure exactly what it is or what's relevant to them. And they can pick and choose from these modules at their own pace and see what they can learn from them.
That's really great. Thank you, Mila. And again, we'll put a link to Offsite Ready for everyone to be able to get that information. Second question is for Matt Stevenson. Matt, with Synergy, how applicable is your model for development of these sustainable development? How applicable is it to smaller or rural, say to the 6 to 25 unit scale developments that we see in Scotland, but also many parts of the world?
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I mean, the scale that we've focused on to begin with is, as I noticed, kind of around the 150 individuals. We don't want it to be bigger than that in terms of individual communities, because that reflects Dunbar's bigger, beyond which you start having sort of fragmentations of community groups. But certainly, it's got applicability to smaller groups, and as we evolve going further forwards, we'll be looking at how we take our typology and position it for those smaller type of opportunities. Obviously, we're getting the benefits within the projects of the communal energy and the communal energy capture and storage, and that balancing effect that comes with looking at a community level is great. But even a smaller number can contribute to benefit. Similarly, a big part of what we do is around the shared mobility. There'll be no car ownership. You've got a shared electric vehicles, but also in balancing that, proximity to transport hubs and networks and stuff will be a key, or cycle path, whatever else. So we very much want it to be a universal solution, and I think there's every potential for that to be the case.
Thank you, Matt. The other question that came through on the chat for anyone, but probably mostly for Robert, and that is a lot of your early work, Robert, was in homegrown CLT in Scotland. Where is that at currently, and is it being commercialized, and what is the future of homegrown CLT?
Yeah, as you know, Ryan, I think when you were here for a period, we were working on this collectively as well. So this dates back 7 or 8 years almost now, in terms of both doing the market feasibility and assessment work, as well as the technical viability, supply chain integration piece. So yeah, we got very close to commercialization before, but then things played out such that didn't happen. But obviously we had the backstock of information demonstrating the viability to utilise UK resource for the production of mass timber products, and that not just the glued solutions, but the non-glued solutions as well. So cross-lam and glue-lam, as well as double laminated timber and neo-laminated timber. So we've demonstrated the technical viability of it, that the material is compatible with the manufacture relative to its consistency of grade and moisture content in terms of what's necessary for the manufacturing process. And of course, we know that there's definitely market demand out there. There's certain things that have been trying to undermine that of late, but the market still seems to be, the current crisis aside, on an upward trajectory, driven, of course, by its sustainability credentials, its enhanced structural performance, and of course other attributes such as the propensity to provide a degree of health and well-being for occupants when you allow the timber to be exposed. So all those things means that there's still a real appetite for it. And currently with the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, we have reconstituted what we're calling a Mass Timber Alliance, and we're undertaking further work to optimise the structural performance relative to the resource, and that's taking place at the moment. And we're also looking again at that demand question in order to really pinpoint what the right scale and type of facility for mass timber production should be. That will likely be down the lines of a glued solution, but we want to look at this again in terms of what is the right manufacturing setup, probably combined glulam CLT production system with the opportunity to scale. So that's kind of where we're at, but certainly we're moving forward with it, and we're hopeful there'll be interest in terms of commercialisation. And of course, the Innovation Centre now has the facility there to at least do pilot manufacture, and we've done that, as Sam spoke of, for other opportunities such as the Multiply project to demonstrate the capabilities within the Scottish context for delivery.
Thank you, Robert. Exciting work using local species. I think a lot of contexts around the world, a lot of places around the world are trying to do this, and it's exciting to see it happening in Scotland as well. We have about 5 minutes left. I think in the end, we're going to turn the time to Mila to talk a little bit about ModX Scotland and what we can expect from that tour for people who'd like to join. Go ahead, Mila.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Ryan and everyone. So I have the great pleasure of introducing ModX Scotland to everyone. Now, on this visit, it will be a 3-day visit, and it will be full packed of factory tours, company visits, as well as seminars, and of course, all those network exchange opportunities, which is what ModX is all about. So there are a few key objectives which you will achieve during this visit. Number one is to investigate the supply chain process, especially for timber, and how that resource management, as well as the minimization of waste of that resource, links with offsite construction and manufacturing techniques. As well as, from these visits, you'll foster relationships with specially selected, very progressive offsite operators who work at scale. And of course, through talking to everybody involved, you develop really in-depth understanding of the UK and the Scottish context, and how offsite construction reacts to market trends, how those two aspects are integrated. The final fourth objective that you will achieve is to investigate the business models that really drive offsite construction in Scotland. Because of course, without productive or without effective business models, the offsite market wouldn't be growing. And you'll get to attend a very detailed symposium, as well as from which you'll be able to take back key lessons learned and implement them in your contexts. So that's the overall idea, the overall objectives. Now, if we just look at the collage which we have on this slide, we've got at the bottom right, where you see the timber processing, that gives you a sense of what you experience on the first day. So you get to go to a timber sawmill, that will be James Jones, and really experience the process from the process of processing that timber, and how any waste materials are minimized, and how that then links to offsite manufacturing, which we'll find out through a visit to Maca Construction up north by Inverness, which is also by Loch Ness. For anyone that wants to see an interesting site. And for that, you can see all these smiley people here with the X of ModX is. So here you can see Neil Sutherland, who heads Maca Construction, as well as other people, including Margaret Watson from Scottish Enterprise, etc. So these are all Offsite Solutions Scotland members who went on a tour to Maca and really got to experience the really ecologically considerate, as well as very human-centered approach to construction, which produces gorgeous designs, these most gorgeous Highland houses. But for me, what was really, really impressive was the lean manufacturing process used in the factory, which is very simple but also very efficient. So there's two aspects to that. You know, there's the management as well as the design aspect. Now, the first day we'll finish off on a very strong note. To the bottom left, you can see here a building with a double curved mass timber roof. This is the Macallan Distillery by Robertson Timber Engineering, which is in fact a fantastic feat of timber engineering in Scotland. It's absolutely breathtaking as a structure. But of course, a very important aspect to it is that it houses whiskey. You know, really, really important for the bus journey back to Edinburgh. Now, and here I want to really pitch in that, you know, these bus journeys or these intermediate points throughout the program are actually a very important part of the MODEX experience, and this is where you really get to socialize with a very small group of people, so you get to understand each other quite well, understand the different issues you're facing, and maybe somebody suggests a solution or suggests somebody else they can introduce you to. And this is where I find, you know, lots of the ideas get flowing in all of these intermediate spaces when you discuss what you've seen throughout the day. And you may be wondering what's this gorgeous background image, the city that we see. This is Glasgow, a really, really beautiful city, which will be a very interesting experience, especially for people who have been to Boston before. It will be a very similar but different experience. And I just think Glasgow is so beautiful. We really need to see it to believe it. But what we have here is a development by CCG. This is Riverfront Gardens, an award-winning development on the south side, which has a mixture of house types or a mixture of properties, and it's a real example of residential developments in Scotland, and you'll get to experience a similar project. What you also see in the O of MODEX, in that little square, is a sample of CCG's semi-automated manufacturing line. This is a nailing bridge, which is part of the process, but CCG manufacture quite advanced closed timber panel systems, which have not only sustainability criteria, but can include also the windows, the doors, and lightweight cladding using brick slips, which is proving to be quite efficient on building sites. So you really get to experience the nitty-gritty of manufacturing and on-site process by speaking to people from these companies. Now, the final day will bring everything together into a symposium at the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and you can see there in the M of MODEX a group of very happy BEX scholars at the Innovation Factory. Now, on this day, you get two benefits. One, you get to experience it firsthand, the Innovation Factory, and just the types of equipment that companies from all across Scotland can use basically on a pay-as-you-go or as on a membership basis to really help drive innovation throughout the industry, a really important element. But also during a more formal symposium, communicate with key players from across the offsite in the UK construction sector on business models and how those business models have evolved and what key lessons you can take away from all this. This has been, you know, a very quick fly through the program, but I'm sure you've got a flavour of it and of all the positivity that awaits for you in Scotland, and we really look forward to welcoming you all here.
Thank you very much, Mila. And I want to thank, of course, Ivan Rupnik, and I want to thank you from MODEX, Sam Hart, Mila Ducheve, Robert Hairstons, Matt Stevenson for joining us on MODEX Scotland. Hope to see all of you on the tour. We hope to do it late fall or early spring, depending on when we're allowed to. So thanks everyone for a wonderful webinar, and see you later.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you for hosting MODEX. Thanks, Ryan and Ivan.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys.